Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode, another season of Timelines Unbound. We're finally in season 2 after a long time, mostly because of the big hiatus in the middle of season 1. Um, but yeah, here we are. It's the beautiful world of the map with a little shader I put on. It's all grainy now. Gotta get into the LARP. First of all, the personal marriage that was formerly holding these two nations together, it's gone. Free once again. How does it feel? Oh, hey. Speaking of things collapsing, a few more nations broke away because this realm here was mostly held together by a bunch of royal marriages and a strong secession. But yeah, their secession is not that strong anymore. Now, these two up here, they don't exactly align with the blue religion. I mean, these guys kind of have some of it, and much of the southern parts of France here have it. That might cause some more issues later. Um, yeah. However, the French do get one good thing happen to them today. They expand a little bit, like this. Oh, these guys down here though, they do align with the blue religion, which is kind of expanding into okay, which is kind of expanding into southern France. It's got these two cities here, here, and it's linked up with these guys. It's also starting to bypass these borders into Castile again. And they finally link up here. This blue religion is just rapidly growing, mostly because of a lot of corruption in the Ordinist Church, south at least. Oh, it's that? Sicily's changing religions? Well, that's not very good. For them, at least. Because of Sicily's religion change, they've been kicked out of the empire formally. Anyways, the Byzantines begin invading Rome, attempting to vassalize them. They get up to these two cities and start approaching the capital. That's not before the combined forces of the legion start pushing in. They're going to attempt to create a bunch of city-states so they can make them join the empire. Byzantium does get these southern areas over here, though, so now we have to look at the peace treaty again. Looking at the peace deal, Orange Rome here, the Emperor, they take a few provinces, which kind of upsets the Northerners. These three little city-states are created, and they are going to be added to the Empire, or the Legion. It's the Legion, not the Empire. So these three fellas are added, and these guys. Sicily is still kicked out. As far as Rome goes, they are allowed to, under Byzantine protection, join as an observer state. So they're allowed to become an observer state and get economic benefits, but they will not be defended by the Legion. And if war breaks out between the Legion and the Byzantines, then it's not very good for Rome because they'll become a battlefield basically. These Moroccan Granada guys, they begin expanding along the coast of Morocco, and they have all these provinces here now. Portugal finally discovers Cabo Verde, which will serve as a very important hotspot for things. Anyways, the Portuguese discover a bunch of small tribal African nations here that magically spawned in. Yep, I bet you didn't notice these guys because they never existed until now. And the Portuguese, to say, aren't very happy because they're Portuguese and these guys are African tribes. Creating a new type of city, which are these purple ones, which represent like growing colonies that aren't exactly, fully developed yet, but they're, you know, turning into regular old cities. So the Portuguese established a number of colonies along the coast of Mauritania and Senegal here, and their plan is to kind of expand inwards here and then downwards into these tribes because they don't care about the tribes. That's about as far as the Portuguese fleets can go. They can kind of island hop between here and then go into their colonies, but it's a very long trip because, this is still early medieval ages. Castile has made the executive decision to split their realm into a bunch of smaller nations. Or, well, this one's pretty big, but it's because there's not a lot of cities here. Castile is still a pretty underdeveloped country for the time period, which is crazy because not many countries are developed. So Castile finally splits apart because they cannot hold on to their realm and there's religious issues. So eventually they just break off these guys down here. They also decide to move their capital because this current capital location is not working for them because it's right along the border and might get converted soon. But their old capital will become a regular old city. So they moved their capital to Asturias. As for these guys down here, they're also going to build some new cities, predominantly along the coast here. Oh, they should also probably have this island here. Oh, that's not the right map mode. And this becomes the capital, of course. Castile also built some new cities here and there. Oh, and they finally take back this Viking base. Well, okay. They also finally take back this Viking base because, the Vikings aren't going to do anything about it. These Italians up north begin expanding over here and finally reached the Popeyes territory, which kind of surprises them because nobody really knew about Popeyes' new colonial ideas. Speaking of colonial ideas, they expand up to these provinces over here. Yep, slowly but steadily. Okay, it's just yeah. As for the rest of this area down here, it gets taken by the Catalonians. Popeyes also begins expanding the colony up north some more. As far as religion goes in Africa, this is the new map. There's kind of this large paganist line, and there's the Portuguese colonies who swiftly converted these lands. Oh yeah, there's a basically I just kind of swapped over with the map mode here. So here's the updated map. Very cool. Anyways, it's time for something new, a kind of new concept that we probably haven't seen before. A revolution. So you remember how you remember how China is kind of a atheist nation? Well, that doctrine isn't really working for them anymore because the Niharas. Okay, well, this is the wrong map mode, ain't it? Yeah. The Niharas have expanded across basically all of northern China, and now they're poising to take the kill. Really, there's also some Nihara down here, and yeah, the atheists down here are kind of just surrounded, and now it's just a civil war, a full blown civil war. Niharans begin invading from the east over here because there's very little cities to stop them. They also fully seize this eastern area over here. I don't know why this. Okay, much better. They take over this area here, and they finally connect up their lines. They're making swift progress because the Chinese weren't expecting this. They've had it easy for far too long. Anyways, their capital is basically, or well, their capital area is surrounded. This city here falls, and then this one too. They move upon this city, and after a long, deadly siege, this is China, by the way, so there's about 1 million casualties every war. And then they move into the city here, and now the capital is basically just surrounded. This city down here is swiftly taken, and the siege of the capital begins, and it's going to be very deadly. The Southern Army just sweeps down here, takes this city with a little bit of trouble because it's a very populated one. Takes this city too, and even this city down here, which I don't know how it's even there. It's just along the edge. Anyways, the capital has finally fallen, and the Nihara revolution is successful. First of all of China is converted to Nihara, and this new state assumes complete control. However, so the atheists, they flee. They run westways until they get to this little lake here, where they build their new little state. This little pretender government, if you will. And it looks something like this. This is the new Roboland right here. So they established their capital along this lake where they found, and it's going to be a long road from here. So the Alban Indians began moving along the coast, trying to secure some spices, because spices are the new big thing now. We're in the Middle Ages. They also expand their little colony down here. It's not really a colony anymore. It's quite a incorporated area. Anyways, they can continue their migration along the little river, and eventually make this a very large panhandle going out this way. Something like this. Some settlers also began colonizing areas over here because they wanted to. Alban India looks something like this now, and eventually they send an ultimatum over to this little nation here that kind of popped out of nowhere. And they're like, get the fuck out of here, or we're going to kill you. The Bengal population is forcibly migrated down here to Sri Lanka under protection of Alban India, and they're something like this now. As for their main areas, they're just destroyed, and the city here is gone. The new Sri Lanka is established down here, and that's where their entire population resides now, about 90% of it. The rest kind of just stayed around this area and are looming, ready to attack. As for the civil war in Ketelong, this southern area in Singapore is taken. They also crossed this strait here because they have quite the navy. They took over a lot of key forts, including the capital of the country. They do take over this area here. Eventually, they also set sail and take over this entire coast here because there's not a lot of people living here. And in doing so, they kind of just take control of the jungle because there's nobody living there. All you really need is the surrounding areas. Anyways, some brutal fighting happens in this very narrow front here. It's kind of just back and forth between these guys. A few Alban Indian troops arrive because of, their little trade agreement and mutual interests. And, yeah. So a lot of bloodshed. It's just back and forth, until an agreement is finally made. The peace deal looks something like this. This nation down south is released by the Ketelon, and they are now going to adopt a new color. They adopt this little midnight color here to separate themselves from the Ketelon, and the Ketelon is kind of recovering from war. However, these guys are kind of ready for expansion because they have a large population that migrated down there after the war ended, so they take over much of Sumatra. As for the Filipinos, they land on Borneo here and begin setting up small colonies. These colonies look something like this, this, and that. There's also a bunch of new developing cities along the coast of this new nation. Down here, here, around here, there's a lot of cities. So these are a lot of developing cities that might be finished by next episode. Catalan is also recovering and trying to build new cities to help mitigate some of the destruction and migrate their population around. Egypt sends an ultimatum to the Israelis, demanding that they kind of just give them the entire Red Sea coast, which is where their capital is, but they kind of have no choice because Egypt beat their ass literally last episode. So, yeah. So Israel is very shittily partitioned, and this city becomes a regular city. My god, let me deselect it. And now Israel has no cities at all, and they have to migrate because they have nothing. They have absolutely nothing. Eventually, the Israelis find this little coast down here in Persia and decide to set up shop, I guess. The lands of Persia at this current time are kind of just known as a mountain. It's mostly just a mountain range everybody recognizes it as, because that's kind of what Persia is. It's one big mountain. But there's a few places you can fit some settlements, like what Israel just did, and they're going to have to adapt a new color. Yeah, this will work. They established their new capital right here along this little island, and they now control a good half of the Strait of Hormuz, which might come in handy, 1,500 years later. These two finally reached an agreement, and Turan agrees to stop raiding them, which is very nice of them. However, they do see some territories down here in compensation, but I think it's worth, not getting raided in the long term because, there's absolutely nothing here anyways. So yeah, Turan looks something like this now. They're also expanding along the Caspian Sea here very, very rapidly. They've got, kind of a rapid expansion policy. Take first, settle later. It's kind of their thing. They also establish a colony around here in Nagai. And word is coming out to the Turan peoples. There's a lot of people out there, specifically, the Russians. Speaking of the Russians, they're not doing too good, and the inevitable is going to happen. This little red Ruthenian nation down here, it breaks away. This nation down here in Ruthenia also breaks away. This one kind of hurts to part with, but a very large chunk of territory along this kind of river, you can kind of see it. A very large chunk of territory here breaks away into a new nation. Muscovy can't exactly do too much about this stuff because their army is destroyed from, unrest. Their army just doesn't want to fight, especially their own people. And they can't do anything about this little breakaway. So it's anybody's game. Anybody can break away from Muscovy, so they feel. And that's exactly what a lot of people are doing. This nation in their newly conquered northern territories breaks away and forms a new nation. They kind of also snatch a few extra cities because why not? They even set sail across this river just to take it. This is the era of border war, by the way, so start getting used to it. And that's basically all that happens to the Muscovites for now. And we can no longer call them Russia, really. We cannot. So you know how the Turan is like very religiously divided? Yeah, well, it's causing some issues now. The Turan is broken in half for now. These guys are. I'm just gonna be so dead ass here. These guys are gonna steamroll the West because they have no chance. These guys are paganist and these guys are Nihara. The Nihara revolution has kind of just reached the Turan, and it's going to be a very swift uprising. It's not as deadly as the Chinese Nihara revolution, where the atheists actually tried to fight. This is mostly just a rapid conversion. So the Turan was forced to become a Nihara horde, which is no big deal. I mean, the Nihara religion is the thing now. They also kind of link up with the Alban Indians, and contact between these two is now very common, and it's not very friendly either. Because of, Israel, Ordonism has finally reached Persia in mainland Asia. It also connects up here and along here. Paganism also expands along here because of this little Horn of Africa nation that I kind of forgot about. Velarism kind of takes over this little pocket here. Oh, the Turan's purple now. Isn't that cool? Yeah, the Second Civil War wasn't too bad, so they get off easy with this one. The little Albanian frontier is very quickly put to a halt. Slovakia begins invading the nations from the north, and then they're stopped at this city here. They also attempt to invade this northern Italian state, but then the Legion army arrives, and this is a lot of nations, and very densely populated, so yeah, things aren't going to be good. So very quickly, these Venetians begin taking over some Slovakian cities, and Slovakia is now not in a good position. The green dudes land in Istria and kind of take it. They also help push back some of the aggression in Dalmatia and meet up here. These green guys begin invading Rome because Rome is, an enemy because they're a vassal of the Byzantines. And then the Byzantine force arrives, which is going to halt them for a little bit. A small orange and blue army is sent down to here to push back the Albanian aggression. Finally, some progress is made when this Albanian city is taken. However, taking the holy city of Albania is going to be a little bit of trouble because there's a lot of people living there. The Dalmatians also start expanding into these crappier Byzantine territories, and they're kind of stopped at these walls here, and then the city. This is looking to be a very bloody war so far. Anyways, the Germans begin invading the Slovakians because they want land. They want that free land, so they start snatching some of these northern territories here, which very much pisses off Slovakia. So they begin retaliating a little bit. Slovakia, their military ideology has kind of faded over the years, which is not very good for them. With a combined force of German and Venetian troops, very large advances are made over here in the west of Slovakia. And eventually, Slovakia decides, you know what, we're gonna get fucked up if we don't peace out now. So that's exactly what they do. For their dishonor, they are kicked out of the Thessaloniki Pact. First of all, Germany annexes this territory over here, as well as some of this territory right here. Venetians occupy all of this territory right here. The Dalmatians get this part. And the Slovakians are forced to relinquish control over this area here and give it to a new state. Kind of, not really Transylvania. Not quite. I don't, oh, ow. Oh, what the hell. I don't know what you'd call this nation. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. Is this really, I mean, hold on. This is kind of just Hungary, really. If you think about it, this is just Hungary. That's a little interesting. Well, Hungary exists now, much to the disliking of the Slovakians, who look a little fucked up now. However, the Byzantines still have a chance to avenge them. They finally defeat the Dalmatians and kick them out of Albania. They also begin making advances into Dalmatian territory. Eventually, they're stopped here, where some fighting just continues and starts and goes again, and it's just a death loop again. Rome is liberated. The Byzantines make some advances into the green Italian nation. Oh, this be called. It's not Napoli. No, Napoli's right here. Who cares? Anywho, another stalemate is made in Italy, and now it's kind of just a death loop on two fronts. And there's not much else that can be done. Egypt withdraws from the war, having done basically nothing. Dennis also withdraws from the war. And eventually the Byzantine advances begin to slow down a little bit. And now they're being pushed back once again. Grey Rome is not looking good. Large supply losses are happening, and finally Grey Rome falls. Dalmatia is liberated. Eventually eventually Albania falls too after a very long, hard siege. And the Dalmatians begin making advances into true Byzantine territory, being stopped at these walls here. They move along and throughout the walls. The walls do their service. They do a good job. There's a very small front line here, so the Byzantines can kind of just influx through. However, Greece, I cannot say the same thing about. It's not as secure. Eventually, the Byzantines, noticing their mild disadvantage here, decide to just withdraw from the war and accept their loss. Now it's time to draw the peace treaty once again. Byzantium is forced to relinquish control over Rome, and Rome is now accepted as a full member. However, there are going to be a little bit more problems. So there's now a new powerful member in the empire, which might cause some problems. Venice is also very strong now because of their territorial gains in Istria. Anyways, Dalmatia is forced to be fully recognized as an independent nation, and now that they're not contested anymore, they can fully join the Legion. Despite being an enemy in the war, the Dalmatians recognize the Albanian subjugation, and they finally allow Albania to gain some territory, and for the first time in hundreds of years, Albania is a free nation. Albania is free, bitches. There's also a little Greek nation built down here in the Peloponnese. This nation here is also created, and they're connected up with the regular Greeks. Finally, Crete is created as an independent nation, and they also receive roads. Byzantium, out of their own decision, decides to relinquish control over this area because there's no way they can control this, because there's a system of walls separating them, and their Albanian colony is kind of gone. So this whole Serbian nation is created. That's not good. That's not good for the world. And finally, they're forced to relinquish control over this area right here. And everything west of it is given to this new Greek nation. So, Serbia's capital is right here, Timor Macedonia. Thessaloniki, Athens, well, kind of Athens, and whatever goes here, and Crete. So yeah, the Byzantine Empire has not collapsed. They're actually okay. They just lost a lot of territory, really. They still have their capital and everything, and a chunk of Anatolia. One last event for this video: these two vassals break away. Well, actually, they don't break away. It's getting into my next point here. Every single county in these two vassals here was given they were given a petition to either become annexed by the Irish or join the British. Yeah, and the votes are in. Most of eastern Wales falls to the British, including these counties here and the city. The British also win the vote in these cities here, but they lose the vote in these three, and then the rest of these are annexed by the Irish. The theme of the poll was some of the denser city areas agreed to join the Irish, but a lot of the rural areas decided to stay with Irish. The cities decided to join the British, and the Irish got most of the rural areas, except these two cities here, which decided to stay with the Irish. So yeah, it's a very disgusting border war situation happening here, but there's not much they can do about it because nobody wants to give somebody else land. Oh, and also Loch Nagoria expands a lot. I forgot to mention that. I just didn't want to forget it, or else I'd feel horrible about it because I neglect Loch Nagoria so much. So yeah, there's the new Loch Nagoria here. Very cool. Thank you for watching another episode of TU, and tomorrow, nothing will happen because I'm not making a new episode tomorrow. Yeah. So thanks for watching, and goodbye.